Is it welcome back? I guess it's welcome back to season 2 of Inside the Pylon. The sequel's always better than the original. A Midwest college football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Sadkowiak. Clinton, I forgot what you looked like there for a minute. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Ryan. I considered just coming in with like a goatee or a Fu Manchu tonight just to
You
throw
should have.
you off when you opened it up.
You should have.
The wife is itching for me to shave my beard, but I don't want to yet. I told her after March Madness. And then I said at the end of my student's clinical, which is at the end of April. So we'll
It's a
see
long
what
time.
this red stuff grows into. But I'm good, man. It's been a nice month off to have a little football free time with just some periodic tweets. It was fun to be on the Three Technique podcast. What was that 2 Mondays ago now?
That sounds right.
It's going to be nice to have some fresh content. I was getting a little bored with cutting the same clips or cutting clips from the same videos over and over again. So it'd be nice to have some new stuff to put out there. How have you been, Ryan?
Oh, just living the dream, man. I've been tired for 4 weeks.
Has your student taken over your caseload yet?
Dude, no, it's like I have so many like long-term patients right now and so many like holdovers who are just kind of like, I'm not going to make you deal with them. It's just my schedule looks like a war zone, and where it's going to be that end of the year meeting thing again. It's like, hey Ryan, your metrics in the spring were really good. What happened? Like, why are you so hard on yourself? I'm like, I don't fucking know because I don't respect myself.
Yeah, we're sitting in we're averaging about 110 to 128% productivity right now.
Yeah, that sounds like what I'm probably somewhere in that range
Numbers
too.
look
It's
great, but he's doing most of the work. He's actually doing so well. We offered him a job at my location.
nice.
So he's doing really good. Hopefully he accepts. Nick, if you're listening to this, if you decide to listen to our podcast, here's to you. Come join Orthopedic One.
See, that's the difference between you and me is you tell everyone about this and nothing gives me the ick more than people I know listening to me talk into a microphone.
Oh hell no, dude! It doesn't bother me at all. If guess what? If they don't like it, they won't listen again.
People like, hey, Joe at work is always like, listen to your podcast. I'm like, Joe, I don't want to hear about you listening to my podcast. I don't want to think about it. I can't do it.
See, I love it. Like when Xavier tunes in, or our faithful listener Adam Badell, not Badal, as he texted me the last time when you asked his question on the show.
I'm just going to call him Adam B.
No, he texted me the other day. He goes, "I'm really sad that I only get to listen to you guys once a week now." I'm like, "It's coming back. It's coming back. We got the new live shows. We'll get back to twice a week in a little bit, and we'll be back on the roll." Ryan and I deserve a break. We decided to enter this fray on the biggest and longest college football season of all time. I don't even think our favorite podcast, The Solid Verbal, Ty and Dan, have taken a break with this. I haven't really listened. I've taken a month off from listening to most podcasts. I'm now deep into Bengals draft and what they can do. But other than that, I've kind of tuned it out and had a little break so we could start fresh.
I've learned about myself that I am incapable of like dual tasking sports at the same time. Like I cannot pay attention to two sports at the same time.
I will say, because football seasons went so longer and with the playoff editions, right? And then Ohio State season being longer, like the Bengals when they made the playoffs a few years ago and deeper runs, it made me trying to tune into college basketball a lot harder. And it's really hard for me to get in the mood. We don't get Bally Sports Network, FanDuel Network, whatever the hell it's called now, through YouTube TV. So I don't ever get to watch the Jackets. I don't get to watch the Cavs. So I don't really have to turn that on until playoff time. And I'm actually going to put our YouTube TV on pause after March Madness because I'm tired of paying $84 a month for cable.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to buy one of those antennas off Amazon that work really well, and I'm just going to get the regular base channels, and I can watch the hockey playoffs and some of the hockey
Oh, I
playoffs,
forgot about the hockey playoffs. Fuck.
and then the NBA
Shit.
playoffs on there. Yeah. I'm just like $84 a month. You guys had this dispute with CBS trying to cut my March Madness timing. Like, I'm tired of this crap. We'll just cut it till football season and then we'll lock and load.
I didn't watch a hockey game this year until the first USA Canada game. That was the first hockey game this year that I like sat
Wow.
down and actually watched.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, how much time did we spend paying attention to college football this year compared to previous years. Well, a hell of a lot more.
Well,
Oh,
I
at
mean,
least
I
at least
watched.
in depth wise.
No, I mean, the last couple years I've been pretty like single mind focused on college football during the season. But now it's like, oh, now I gotta. It's hard fucking being a West Coast sports fan on the East Coast too, because everything starts at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's like I would like to go to bed. I have to get up at
Absolutely.
5 in the morning.
Yeah.
And
I
then
feel you.
soccer. I didn't watch a damn soccer game in the fucking entirety of the fall, and now I completely forgot that Leeds played a first place game today and beat Sheffield. So that was fun.
Do
Good
you
game.
watch soccer normally?
Yeah.
I had no idea about that. See, guys, you learn something new every day.
I got real into it during the World Cup 2 years ago. I picked a team because they had 3 Americans and an American manager on it, and they promptly got relegated from the Premier League, and they've been fighting back for the last two
Nice.
years.
Nice.
Good
Hey,
times.
the Columbus Crew are good. That's all I got.
Yeah, well, MLS.
I'm just
Anyway,
hoping the Jackets make the playoffs so I can have some hockey interest. Otherwise, I don't know who I'd root for. So, go Jackets.
all right. Well, what are we doing today, Clinton? You're the content
So,
master.
folks, Clinton let Ryan take a full month off completely just to let his brain erase everything from memory. And I've been putting together a little bit of our spring schedule. So just an update. I think we're going to stick to once a week for the next couple weeks, guys, just in regards to timing and getting closer to the spring ball stuff. When we get into the spring episodes here in a couple weeks, we're going to go twice a week again. But I think for the next 2 to 3, Ryan and I are just going to stick to once a week, slowly reintegrate ourselves back into it. I think our goal is to be just Monday nights for the next couple weeks. If we go on a Thursday or a different night, we'll let you know. But right now, next couple weeks, just once a week. Then we'll get into our spring preview stuff. We'll have a little bit of draft episodes. Our draft guy Jared is going to come back on and join us closer to the draft. And we also have, if Clinton can pull it up fast enough, another person who has agreed to come on with us. And that is Ryan Roberts, who likes to cover draft coverage. He's got quite a few followers on the gram, so he's at Ryzen Draft. If you guys want to check him out, he's agreed to come on and talk some draft stuff with us as well. If you want to interact with us outside of the show, hit us up on the socials, Twitter, or if you want to call it X, and Instagram at ITPCFB. Don't forget, you can also find us on our YouTube channel. We'll be back under the live section for these episodes. We also Clinton will be cutting some new shorts. So I just referred to myself in the third person.
That would be the
I
third
will
person.
I will be cutting some new clips to get out on the shorts page for that. Again, YouTube, just search ITPCFB. And then your preferred podcast network. You can find us inside the Pylon Midwest College Football Podcast. Ryan does a great job cutting these up after episodes and getting them out to you guys. If we're going to do Monday night lives, the episodes will be up Tuesday morning in your podcast feed. And when we return to Thursday night lives, they will be up for your Friday morning commute, which has been pretty standard for us throughout our time. Other than that, that's about it for the spring. And then tonight, Ryan and I, we don't have a deep ton of stuff, but a couple topics here. One being the NFL Combine that is coming up and starting this Thursday, running through the end of Sunday, I believe. But then I also wanted to talk about, Ryan, and maybe to lead us off tonight, and if you have anything to say before we kick it off, just the topic of some schools not doing spring games anymore, which is becoming more and more prevalent. It's been talked about in the past, but schools are actually doing it now. So, Ryan, if you have anything to add, if not, we can kind of dive into that.
Add like in general, or just add about the spring game stuff? Because I
Just
have
in
nothing.
general.
No, I
Just
have
in
nothing.
general.
No, I have nothing to add in
He's just an
general.
absent face. He's John Cena. You can't see me.
Dude, I feel like a potato, and I don't have a reason to. I don't know why.
Do you
Don't
look
know
like
why.
a potato?
Yeah, probably. I am a little potato looking.
Oh gosh.
This camera on this MacBook that I just got is super nice. Like you can
Nice.
like all the color is like you can see it. It's now not just like
I
bright.
see the back of your wall, much different.
I know you can
Normal.
you can like see the detail, and it's pretty cool.
I have a new camera. In the midst of my youngest son being sick all day, I forgot to set it up tonight.
I was gonna
So
say you don't look any different, but you might want to ask for
Yes.
your money back on that
No.
one.
Next week, I will set this up this week and get it ready for next week. It has been, as I told Ryan, it's been hectic at work. I have a student. I also have a mentee now. Management role is phenomenal, but just adjusting to dual roles now, plus still being a PT and a podcaster and a dad. Camera kind of came last, so I will get that set up so hopefully you guys can see my beautiful smile even more. So, Ryan, let's dive in. We have noticed a trend here with teams either canceling spring games for 2025 or modifying their form of spring game to a spring showcase, an Ohio State case. Right now, at least of note of the major teams, Nebraska, which was the first, USC, Texas, and Missouri have all canceled spring games. And then Ohio State is modified, and I believe you told me pre-show it sounds like Notre Dame's going to do some type of a modification as well.
Well, it's not a modification. It's just like they don't. Their spring game's not like their last scrimmage. They do. I don't know if they still call it the Jersey scrimmage, but they do like a full-on, like all-out scrimmage the week before the spring game. That's closed doors, and then the spring game is just, hey, here's some guys, and come spend your money and watch football.
Yeah, that's essentially what Ohio State would do. I believe they do 2, maybe 3 team scrimmages leading up to the spring game, and then they put that on for the fans. So, is this really a huge loss, Ryan, if we have the death of a spring game? I mean, it's essentially
No.
a glorified practice, right? The coaches aren't going to show anything of note. Tackling is pretty scarce in spring games now compared to 10, 15 years ago when we had actually hit outside of the quarterback. It's essentially become a glorified two-hand touch. You just mentioned it. It's more of a fan experience for their team, right? It's a way for the team to make money, charge you admission. Even Ohio State thinks like $10. You can get up to like $25 if you want to sit in a club level seat or something for this spring game or spring showcase. But it's mostly a fan experience and a chance. How I look at it is maybe like a young fan like my son to get there and experience Ohio State a little bit without paying $150 pre-tax to get your child to go. Have you ever been to a Notre Dame spring game?
No.
Have you ever been to a spring game?
No. I would rather watch paint dry than do that. He says, having watched the last 3 Notre Dame spring games. Actually, I think the last 4. Because
But you didn't watch them in person.
No, well, it started because 4 years ago I had one foot and was couch bound, and
That's
I'm like,
right.
well, I was gonna watch the Notre Dame spring game. It's like on a Saturday at the end of April, like especially in this part of the country when the weather can be anything from like 75 and sunny to you're snowed in. It's like, oh, at least it's some football to watch. Like familiar football, right? Like I could not give less of a shit about the USFL or the UFL or the XFL or whatever they're calling themselves these days. Like I am not thirsting for football that badly, but like, okay, I know some of these names. Let's watch this and see what's going on. It's like I'm not like gonna sit there and you're not watching it like you would a normal game. It's like, hey, I'm gonna put this on the TV while I screw around on my phone for a couple hours and whatever. But I think from like a coaching perspective, if every single one of these guys had their way, they would not do anything for a spring game.
Yeah.
Just do their practice, and it's just a inconvenience, I feel like, for almost all of them. I think there's some that like understand and appreciate and value what you mentioned, the community aspect. Like, hey, here's an opportunity for, whole families to come out and maybe do something that they're not able to do during football season, whether it be from like a time standpoint or, like a cost prohibitive standpoint, and make it like a fun community event for them. But as far as like actual football goes, like, come on, man, like you're not getting anything out of that. And I think like, I thought Matt Rule's reasoning for canceling Nebraska's spring game was so stupid. Like, homie, the coaches already know who on your team is worth going after and tampering with. They don't need to see you run a fake ass practice on Big Ten Network to figure that out, man. Just say you don't want to have a spring game. Say it's useless. We don't need it. Like, don't lie. Don't make shit up. It's ridiculous. Like, everyone gets it. They're stupid games. They don't mean anything. You don't have to be like, we don't want our players to get tampered with because they went out there and ran for 100 yards in a spring game. No one cares. Like, no one, like, wasn't it Nebraska spring game like 15, 20 years ago? They had that kid who actually I think just passed away recently. They had him run for like a 70-yard touchdown in the game. Like that's what spring games are
Mhm.
for. Like fun, cool, heartwarming moments like that. They're not people aren't watching your spring game, Matt Rule, to figure out if your backup quarterback's worth tampering with.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yep. It kind of a cop out there. I mean, honestly, when I look at it and I was thinking about this, how much does it actually affect this whole tampering thing is what I'm talking about here. A team like a Georgia, an Ohio State, and Alabama. And because if that player is good enough, they're not going to leave there to go play at USF. Like, they're not going to do that. So again, why would another program, let's say, same, I don't know, Central Florida. Why would Central Florida be tuning in to Georgia spring game to watch the fourth string guy who's never going to play? They're not trying to pillage him. And then why would this RB2 from Georgia want to leave to go to UCF when he's going to be on a national title contender and play a bunch? It just doesn't make sense. That'd be like Florida or Miami tuning into the Ohio State spring game last year to try to flip Jeremiah Smith into the portal. Those type of guys are not going to go. The guys who go in the portal most times are guys who aren't playing. And if not playing on your roster, then it's not that big of a loss if they leave. And sometimes for guys too, it's just a chance for a second opportunity. You've put your time in 2 to 3 years. You've got only God knows how many years you have left now because we just keep adding college eligibility. And it's your chance to go have a spot somewhere else. I mean, this was before the portal really, but the new rules of the portal. Joe Burrow leaving Ohio State to go to LSU. And look what it became for him. And I think that sparked a lot of this, right? Like, you hear quarterbacks that go in the portal now with 2 years of, like, can he be the next Joe Burrow? Will he be? I'm like, that's a pretty hard thing to do. And similar, like, when you get these comparisons, like Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes, like, you guys realize how lofty of comparisons those things are, right? Like, those are asinine. There's one Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to match that. You're not getting Patrick Mahomes in the portal. He's not going to leave his school. I don't know. That seemed a pretty big cop out. Wasn't there also a comment too about how they were doing stadium renovations as well? And there's another school that canceled that is also doing stadium renovations, and that's the reason why they're not doing their spring game. I'm like, it's okay if you don't want to do it. I get it. You're not trying to piss off your fan base. It's okay. But Ryan and I have mentioned it, and we hit on it perfectly. It's about the fan experience, getting someone out there. You mentioned the young man for Nebraska. I believe Ohio State introduced, I don't know if you remember him from the 2014 season, Jacob Jarvis. I'm not sure what he had wrong with him, but that was something I believe they introduced in the spring game, and he was just kind of the team the entire season. It's something special, something cool for the families to have, to be out there. And just have a fun environment. Like for me last year taking Elliot, it was to see the little tailgate experience and a smaller level. And if the kid was ready to go at halftime, cool, I spent $20. I can leave. It's okay. Just the experience and the fun. My question is though, Ryan, if we're going to lose these traditional springs and we're going to do these changes moving forward, are we going to move to like a more of an NFL style offseason? Where your vets kind of sit more. If you think about like OTAs in May, the vets don't really participate a whole lot. Sometimes the quarterbacks do. Guys with a lot of reps don't. And that's kind of where Ohio State has been the past few years. I can only speak to them being more of an avid follower of them individually, where they rest their players, their veterans, for more through the spring. They don't get as much work, play the young guys. It's just reducing hits on them. You're going to spend more time on the youth. Texas, I was reading about, is actually... Sarkisian said they are opting for an off-season training model that mirrors the NFL OTA style. So when we get to these things, does that start to hurt development of just players in general? Because they're not going against some of the other talent on the team and it's just young on young? And biggest question mark of all, does it hurt the development of a young quarterback where we see some of those introductions coming in this year in the Big Ten?
Maybe. I don't know that that's any different than what has been in the past, especially after like a long playoff. And I get this year's been longer than every other year in college football history. But I mean, after a long season, some of these teams, like you get to the first couple weeks of spring, it's like you still have guys who are probably nursing stuff from the end of the season, especially this year. Like, I don't know if Jeremiah Love is going to participate in spring practices. He played the entire playoff with a torn MCL. Like, that's not just something that you snap. There's not a fucking video game where you snap your fingers and, oh, next season started, he's good to go. Like, he's still going to be recovering from that. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, the other side of that coin is, well, now your young guys are having more opportunities to get reps, so maybe they're not going against the ones, but you're putting guys out there getting one type reps who may not have been getting that in the past. And if the stated goal of your football program is to build depth from within to prepare yourself for a better run, I don't know how that can't be anything but a good thing. I get it's not ideal, not necessarily always not going against the best in practice, but if you're a program that fancies yourself as building well through high school recruiting, you're getting these guys young opportunities, getting these young guys opportunities early. You can see what you have in them. You can see like, oh, we definitely know that this guy is going to be a hit, and hey, maybe he's more likely to play now than in the past because we wouldn't have given him these opportunities because we had, fifth year senior Joe Schmo out here at defensive tackle who we knew who was going to be our guy playing all year. So I don't know. I'm fascinated to see, like, with this longer season, and it sounds like it's just going to keep getting longer with more playoff teams getting added, how teams approach like off-season training. And I mean, if we get to a point where it's like, great, now the season is ending in February because we have to keep pushing it back so much to accommodate these playoff games, what does that even mean for spring practice in general? Like, are we now starting it like in April and it's going through finals week and into May? Like, that's the other issue too, is, I mean, if we want to get like all nihilistic and like big picture here, there's probably going to become a certain point where college football just breaks away from the NCAA and the academic calendar just isn't even a thing that's in consideration anymore. But right now, that's the kind of like thing that's holding this all together or holding this all up, right? Is you're operating on the calendar that your kids are going to class in, right? You're not keeping them around until the end of May because the semester ended in April or first week of May with finals. And it's like, okay, everyone's got to be out of the dorms. You can't be here. I'm sure that's not necessarily true for football programs, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, they can't indefinitely push things back and just be like, okay, well, we're just going to have like April OTAs now. Cause it's like, well, we have finals that we're studying for and would kind of like to do that.
I mean, to some point, right? Education is still important. That was just some of the. We talked off air about it, where the Big Ten and SEC are pushing for the expanded playoff, guaranteeing themselves 4 teams each in a 14-team playoff. How likely that's going to last maybe a year or two before they push it to 16. Is that just academic calendar, and there's really not going to be any pushback from the NCAA because they can't, because they'll get sued. You've said it before on this show. If someone wants to push back against the NCAA, they'll sue them and they'll back off. So the NCAA apparently is kind of backing off in this scenario, letting the Big Ten, SEC kind of lead it. The ACC, Big 12 are just kind of following in suit so that they can stay a part of this and not be left behind and be okay with 1 or 2 auto bids while the other 2 schools get 4. But the NCAA, they were saying from the standpoint of they want to keep the academic part in so they can stay connected. And I'm like, yeah, until they realize they don't really need you for that either because they don't care. And then it's not going to matter. But I'm sure you've come across a little bit. Just your brief thoughts, Ryan, on the Big Ten, SEC, and them kind of leading the charge. We know it's Fox and ESPN also behind leading this charge because of money, but just some quick thoughts on that's been going around.
Well, it's ridiculous because I think someone crunched the numbers, and under the proposal that they're pushing for, it would be like more often than not less beneficial to them because they're costing themselves bids by doing the 4 and 4. And if you look at like the standings this year, if they just did 14, you wouldn't need 4 auto bids because you both would have gotten 4 teams in anyway. And more often than not, in 14 or 16 teams, both the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get 4 teams in, regardless of the auto bid situation. And I mean, it's entirely an optics thing. It's like they don't care. They have the money. They know that they have the power. But also, I guess, I don't know why I'm saying this because they clearly have demonstrated that they don't give a shit what anyone thinks about them because they've been very blatant this entire time that this is just a cash grab and they don't give a shit what anyone else thinks about it. But like, you could just go to 14 teams and say, conference champions and then let the chips fall as they may. And it would be no different. But the fact that you're so blatantly like pushing for this like participation trophy inclusion for your fourth best team is just so cravenly disgusting. It's like, come on, man. At least leave the illusion that anyone can make it in instead of just flat out being like, no, actually, our fourth place team deserves to make it because we're better than you.
Yeah.
Okay, your fourth place team who got curb stomped by a Michigan team that couldn't throw, that was playing 1900s football, couldn't complete a forward pass, SEC, and your fourth place team. Wait, was Ohio State technically the fourth place team in the Big Ten this year?
Playing their third.
Didn't they lose? No, because
No, they
Indiana
were
finished
fourth.
third.
No,
All
they were
right,
fourth.
well, there go. I was going to say your fourth place team who had 140 yards in 55 minutes against Notre Dame, but your third place team who had 130 yards against Notre Dame in 55 minutes, and your fourth place team who won the national title. So, anyway, there goes that talking point.
Yeah, and just some of what I was reading, the way it sounds like Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey are going to try to pitch this when it comes through to sell it to people is stabilizing the playoff experience, right? It gives structure and parameters because you have those 4 guaranteeds and the 2 guaranteeds potentially for the Big 12 and the ACC. And then, with a new financial model incoming in the House settlement for NIL, that they're going to have a separate entity overlooking that versus it just being what it is now, like, which is nothing. Open Pandora's box and just let it go. And then they're going to pitch to you, well, it provides greater access to the ACC and the Big 12 because now they get 2 teams that are guaranteed to be in there versus we don't know if they're even going to get one in a sense because I guess technically 2 G5s if they were higher ranked and you could leave out one of them. And then each conference kind of having their own parameters for determining who they want to put in. So it's just may not be your top 4, Ryan. There's discussion of deciding that they should get to pick who goes to be there for.
Oh boy.
So pretty interesting, right? like okay, cool. Let's say you got Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon at the top, and then a team like Northwestern stumbles upon to be number 4, but we're like, Penn State's actually a bigger brand. We're gonna put them in over you.
Oh boy.
Like, could you imagine that? And that was just some stuff I was listening to the Solid Verbal and some things I had read about it and kind of came to those conclusions. I don't know if you'd be able to sell that.
No,
you tell
Clinton.
me
I
I
think
can't do that.
I think as a fan, like a collective fan base, we put up with a lot of shit from people who don't have the best interest of the sport at mind. If that were to happen, that would be my reason for stopping watching. Like I'd be done. Like I legitimately like that would be it for me. Like it's a beauty contest then.
Yep.
I mean, it's already a beauty contest, but like that would be so overtly like manipulative of the overall experience to just say, you know what, we just want a TV number here. And I think that would be the thing that would ruin college football.
I agree. And then you think about it too is how much longer till we're to the super conferences? It's coming. We know it is. Is this a way if the Big 12 and the ACC think if they just play along that we can string this out longer and help their conferences survive? I don't know. I think the super conference thing's coming in the next 10 years and there's just not a whole lot we can do about it, but if this is the way that we can keep college football a little more of what we love for 10 more years, then that's fine. But you make a good point, and I don't think you necessarily need the 4 locks for both those schools because most years you're going to get 4 teams in anyways. You don't need the auto bid to get them in because they're going to get there 9 times out of 10. But does it go back to like the Sankey pitch of like, well, we play such a tough schedule and so then if they don't have the auto bids, then now they only get 2 teams in and the Big 12 gets 3. Like, I don't think you're going to have to worry about that many years. The other point that someone brought up too is if you start having these auto bids, 4 Big 10, 4 SEC, 2 Big 12, 2 ACC, your G5, it pretty much makes the playoff committee, it renders them almost useless.
Yeah, they're just there for seeding then.
Yep. And because they're not really needed to pick anything. Not that we came up with a great idea for how to seed this year, but they're pretty much useless in those regards. So you kind of do away with that, and then I don't know, ESPN steps on their own foot there because they love to pitch this whole playoff ranking and playoff shows every week just for TV
Well,
ratings
that's
and
like the
money.
other
But
thing that I don't get too is like, so we have a 14 team field and you're giving 8 of those, like you already know who's going to be in. And then you have 2 from the Big 12 and the ACC, let's say. So math is hard. That's already
12,
12. So then you have your G5. And
13,
then if Notre Dame is a top 14 team, per the language in this, they're guaranteed a spot. There's literally no drama around it.
there's 2 spots.
It's one.
It
Because
would
you have
be
8. You have 8 for the 2, then 2 for the 12, Big 12, 2 for the ACC, plus your G5, plus Notre Dame.
that's 14.
That's 14.
So there's 2 left. So you get 16 in.
Oh, if I'm just operating under the assumption that we're staying at 14 for a minute.
I'm sorry. I was thinking. I guess I already looked past 14 because I know 16's coming.
Yeah,
They're
well,
going to do the same thing they did this year. They're going to give it to us for a year or two, and then they're going to move.
but like if like your ranking show is completely useless then if you're ESPN. Like I don't care how they're seated. Just cool. I know who's going to be in there and we'll figure out who plays who.
Oh,
Don't care. Like there's no drama around it. Which I mean, I guess it's fine. I don't care for the drama anyway, but
yeah.
kind
I
of
mean, I
dumb.
guess you still get the drama through the season, kind of like the NFL, of like you already kind of know who's going to make the NFL playoffs. It's more about like how
I
do you
mean,
position yourself for seeding. But
do you though?
do you want college football to be that way though?
No, because if then there's no point in playing a non-conference game then. Like just you have a 2-game preseason. Like the other they're talking about doing this Big Ten SEC scheduling arrangement. If the entire playoff is predetermined by who's like ranked in their own conference standing, why would you ever play a non-conference game against anyone worth a shit? Call up Mount Union if you're Ohio State and be like, all right, well, why don't you guys come on down to the Horseshoe? We'll give you $2 million to fund your athletic department for the year, and we'll beat the shit out of you in front of 100,000 people.
And get half your team killed.
Like, there's like, why would you schedule a non-conference game
Yeah.
if you're a Big Ten team? Then why do we have to play this game? It's literally the only thing that matters are our conference standings. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's dumb.
I guess it would be how much your AD pushes back because they want those Big Ten SEC challenge matchups for money. That's what they want it for. It's not about seeding anymore. It'd be, look how much money Ohio State, Alabama, week 1 would draw.
Oh, if I'm the coach, I would throw a bitch fit, dude.
Absolutely,
I'd be, why are you making me play this game? Why am I risking my guys getting hurt in a game that doesn't mean anything? Unless you'd have to correct me on the language on this because like I said, I've completely unplugged for the last month. Unless they're talking about like the 4 highest rated CFP teams from each conference and not just like by standings, then okay, I could see that, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, because I mean, it could factor out a little bit different. Like, look how Ohio State was ranked ahead of Indiana all year, but Indiana finished higher in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Ohio State hosted a playoff game despite finishing 4th in the Big Ten, and Indiana played at Notre Dame.
Yep.
So unless that's what it is, and like I said, someone can tweet at us and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but
That would then also keep maybe your interest in watching these college football ranking shows too, because it then has a bearing, right? Like, oh man, is Ohio State going to stay ahead of Indiana this week? That could make their playoff push a little harder. Or if they don't, I don't know. It would be interesting to see. I think the bottom line is just knowing the sport that we have loved for so long is just continuing to change and not
for the
so
better.
much in a positive way, I would say.
No, it's not for the better. It's not for the better.
Just to the end to come down to 2 super conferences who are then going to divide into 4 and we're going to remake the Pac-12 and all that stuff anyway. So why didn't we just leave it the same?
Here we have the Northern Football Conference West, where it's Washington and Oregon and USC and UCLA. Why don't we just call it something like maybe the Pac-10?
Yeah. Why didn't we just leave it the way it was?
Why did we waste 10 years and make a bunch of non-revenue sports travel 3,000 miles across the country to play weeknight games for this nonsense?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how much you follow college basketball. Mick Cronin, head coach for UCLA, has commented about the multiple times a week when you got to go to Rutgers and then fly back to UCLA to play a game. Like, it's tougher on these guys. Football's a little easier, right? You're playing once a week, and even that's a challenge. But now you've got all these other kids and athletes and coaches dealing with this stuff twice a week. When you play baseball, you play 3-game sets. So you're going to go out to USC, play a 3-game set, and you're going to fly back to Ohio and play Michigan for a 3-game set. That's your week. That doesn't seem very reasonable. Like, I don't know, man. It's a pretty interesting scenario.
Got a bunch of morons running this sport.
It's a beautiful thing, and we just let money. It's the root of all evil, right? Isn't that the saying?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I like money too. I can't necessarily blame them. I like money, but I'm just the little guy. I'm not the big guy.
At a certain point, though, like, it's just like it's this bringing in. It's like when they started bringing in TV executives to be the commissioners of sports. That's when you knew it was going to get ridiculous, because these are dudes, soulless motherfuckers who don't care about anything but the bottom line. Like, you need people who love the sport who are running the sport, because that's how you get decisions that are made with the best interest of the sport at heart. Now you're getting just nonsensical decisions for the sake of a bottom line. And eventually, just like anything, when you continue to chase the dollar, eventually you're going to make a decision that is wildly unpopular, and it's going to bite you in the ass. And it's going to suck for all of us when we finally get there.
Absolutely.
Because college football will be unrecognizable.
And it's just going to be some similar product to what we get in the NFL, and it's going to feel the same. And what I like about college football is that it's different. That's why I love it so much. But, all right, Ryan, let's go to something, I guess I'd say happier, not for all fan bases per se, but the NFL Combine this week. So I wanted to start this one off just going to go over the, it starts on Thursday, first of all, guys. The Power 4 totals. Ryan, can you guess which conference has the most players invited to the Combine this year?
Well, Ohio State had like 18, so I'm just going to go ahead and say the Big Ten.
That is incorrect.
Oh.
The answer is the SEC. They have 105.
Should have guessed that.
It just means more, right? Big Ten is in second. They have 79 players. The ACC 60. The Big 12 46. And to not forget about our Mid-American Conference. You want to guess how many they have, Ryan?
4.
They do have 4. Did you already know that?
I did not know that.
Okay, they had 4. And your boy Harold Fannin is one of them.
That's what up. That's what's up.
Really good there out of the Big Ten to be second most. I'd say most years we probably ride SEC Big Ten at the top. I want to go down the list real quick of teams. Ohio State has 15, which Ryan mentioned. Oregon 12. Notre Dame 8. Iowa 7. Minnesota 6. Penn State 5. Clearly Penn State probably would have had a lot more if they didn't have so many guys come back. Maryland 5. UCLA 5. Rutgers 4. Nebraska 4. USC 3, Wisconsin 3, Indiana 2, which also kind of surprised me a little bit with the year that they had, but also brought a fair amount back. Illinois has 1, and Purdue 1. Michigan State got these other schools named, but Purdue got 1. Of all teams, that's pretty comical. So just looking over this, I mean, you got your big names, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Trayvon Henry, and Quinshon Judkins. So I listened to Locked On Bengals this morning, and they had Mike Renner on, who used to work for Pro Football Focus, but is now a part of CBS. And he was talking about some of the players, and they mentioned some of the ones that we cover. So, Ryan, you know the name Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, Oregon, formerly of Michigan State. Well, his friend and former teammate, Jamari Caldwell, is a defensive lineman that is going to be under the microscope, but in a good way this week. He got a lot of hype with the Senior Bowl. Renner mentioned that he might be projected 5th to 7th round, but has a chance to really make up some due with him in the Combine this year. He has him ranked in his top 100, though. Not great length, but he's a fantastic first step. So kind of a guy for the Oregon fans to watch there. Ohio State, of course, we're looking at Will Howard. I think the one I want to watch the most and see if there's a way that he can kind of work himself into, I wouldn't say first round, but maybe to QB3. Not quite sure when QB3 might be called, but someone there. Ryan, can you speak on your Notre Dame guys a little bit? What's the expectation? Riley Leonard going to get drafted, do you think?
Maybe. I think he had an okay week at the Senior Bowl, but, I mean, he has to throw well. I mean, that's kind of, I'm sure he'll interview well. I'm sure he'll test well, but if he throws like he did in the first half of the national title game, I don't think too many people are going to be impressed by that.
Yeah. I see some other name, Bo Collins. I don't really know what to expect from him in this regards. I didn't really get a whole lot from him this season. I think you're intriguing guys. Mitchell Evans, how he's
Hmm.
back after the ACL and what he can do testing wise. Howard Cross, Riley Mills. We do have an injury update if he'll be able to go in the combine.
No, it was at least an ACL, I think,
Okay.
possibly MCL too.
Okay.
He's not testing. I don't know if Morrison is going to test. I don't know if Cross is going to test.
Okay. So at least get the interview process in, right? And then Xavier Watts, who I think might be the steal of this class. He is safety number 2 right now to me. Starks from Georgia would be the number 1, and from what I've heard, is by far the number 1. I'm just hoping Xavier Watts makes it to 49 to the Cincinnati Bengals to reunite him with Al Golden. That'd be beautiful. Looking at the receiver class, we all know Tedorola McMillan is, I believe, wide receiver 1. I don't think there's much argument with that. But Emeka Egbuka, if he can get himself, have a great combine, get himself back into that late first round. We obviously know about Michigan's studs that we've had. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, high likelihood they're going to be first round. Will Johnson, and some of the CBS articles I was checking out, he is a guy who kind of needs to save his draft stock, per Ryan Edwards, just from the standpoint of didn't quite have the junior season we all thought he was going to. Now that was obviously plagued a little bit by injuries, but just not up to his standards. Can the big Donovan Edwards or Khalil Mollings make some hay for themselves? Edwards is an elite athlete to get himself out there. As Ryan brings, I almost called her Susie. Goodness sakes. What is your dog's name?
Lucy.
Lucy. Lucy looks thrilled, Ryan. She looks like a distressed deer right now.
Yeah, she doesn't like being picked up, but
Sniff the microphone. But Ryan, the one kind of debate, we know who the best player in this draft is. It's Abdul Carter. I don't think there's any question about that. But I wanted to get your thoughts. Tyler Warren versus Colston Loveland. Who do you think is going to be the better prospect at the NFL?
oh boy, I've induced zoomies. I don't know, man. I feel like the allure of Tyler Warren at the college level was just look at all of these different things that this big, scary looking, big, fast dude can do, and that's not something that the NFL is going to have him do. So with him, like you're just kind of like what made him so unique at the college level, I think is probably the right way to phrase that, is just I can't think of the right word for this, just like the vastness of his repertoire. And I'm sure that there's some offensive scheme that can kind of get creative with that, but I think like guys like him who are kind of like in that bigger mold, like with him, I think like Michael Mayer, like who did not run particularly well at the combine despite being like a freak in college and then fell a little bit because of it. I think Loveland just will probably test a little bit better, and thus, I'm not saying that means I think Loveland's a better NFL prospect, but I think he's going to test better, and thus will probably get picked higher because of it.
Yes. So Ryan mentions his size. Tyler Warren, we'll see official measurements at the combine, is 6'6", 257 pounds.
It's a lot of man.
Colston Loveland is 6'5", 245. So if you listen to some of the experts, Mike Renner this morning went with Colston Loveland as his tight end 1 over Tyler Warren. He said he's more athletic and he's younger. Colston Loveland is also really good against man coverage. We saw that numerous times. He was the absolute only option in a Michigan offense this past year, really the past 2 years. I mean, he was Mr. Reliable. If you needed someone to get open, he found soft spots in zone. If you were under pressure and duress, he would be your release valve. He's a really great tight end who plays in line, outside. I worry some, you and I have talked about this, that maybe Warren got a lot of love this year because of so many places that he played on the field. Is it just Kotelnicki being gadgety that got the attention to him? Like Colston Loveland, I've known the name for 3 years. I didn't really know the name Tyler Warren as much till this year. And that sometimes works. We always talk about age at the NFL level. Warren is going to be 23. Colston Loveland will turn 21. But NFL guys like younger guys. I don't know how much 2 years plays a difference. Tight end, they always say it takes multiple years to be successful in the NFL. So maybe that age does a good thing for Tyler Warren. I did see an interesting one. That this might have been a Penn State bias site, but giving Tyler Warren comparisons to Rob Gronkowski because of how he wins at the catch point, and he's also a reliable lead blocker in the run game. So that's a pretty lofty comparison to be compared to Gronk, in my opinion. Based on the poll, not really a poll, but the question I posted on Twitter, Anthony Russo, Tyler Warren. We had our draft guy, Jared. Tyler Warren, because he's like one of the robots from Robot Wars with a giant spinning medieval flail attached to it. You can get close, but you're going to get hurt. Colston Loveland isn't like that. Chad M. Striker, also a Tyler Warren, and then Bengals_Sands. His name is Mike. I asked him about it. He says he haven't really watched both in depth, but Loveland probably gets a small bump because of his age. And then we had our Updog Sports Talk, who's a common interactor with us. He said Harold Fannon's better than both.
Let's go.
Most dominant tight end and got plenty of time lined up in the backfield as well. Very versatile and dominant guy. Overlooked because he played in the MAC, which I agree with. But then I contacted him back and I said, that's not what I asked on the question. And then he gave me a Tyler Warren. So only one Loveland answer, really. I guess technically if Renner would have responded, he would have given a Loveland answer. But I think the tight end debate's pretty interesting. A couple more guys to touch on. Kevin Winston Jr., we talked about him last spring and how much of an impact he was going to have for Penn State. He got hurt, out for the season. He was one of Renner's favorite safeties, coming off injury, but again, great sophomore tape that you can kind of rely on. He loves your guy, Xavier Watts. Like I said, number 2 behind Malachi Starks. He's a ball hawk. Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong here. 13 interceptions in 2 years.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That is fantastic. But his kind of knock to Watts compared to Starks is that Stark is just a better overall athlete, more athletic than what Watts is. Not in our coverage, but I wanted to give Purdue a mention. Nick Scorton is getting a lot of first-round love. So the poor Boilermakers, who are also going to see Dylan Thieneman probably get some pretty high draft love next year after he's done at Oregon. He's one of the highest-rated edges in this draft class. It's interesting to see his combine because it sounds like he gained a fair amount of weight from his transition to Purdue to Texas A&M. He was up to, rumor has it, 290 pounds, which is a lot of weight.
That's a lot of man.
For an edge rusher. So we'll kind of see what his weight is, if he drops some of that, how he tests. Kind of other guys just to watch as we go through here on the list. Our guy, Caleb Johnson. Seeing how he performs, what he does. I'm interested to see Luke Lachey out of Iowa. We know Iowa tight ends are fantastic. Another guy that CBS made note of is actually a Maryland player and not named Ty Felton. The defensive tackle, Jordan Phillips. Kind of an underrated radar guy by, I believe, Ryan Wilson, who made that comment there. UCLA, I don't want to be a jerk here. Bunch of names I can't pronounce. They're tight end, 2 D-line, and 2 linebackers, and I don't want to do them any disservice by botching their names. Our guy, Kyle Monangai, I think we're all intrigued to kind of see where he goes, how he performs at the Combine based on what he does. So Rutgers gets a little love there. Woody Marks, I'm really interested to see how he does. He had a phenomenal season for USC. Wisconsin got a couple. The biggest name, I believe, was Hunter Wooler, who we were, again, very high on of the defensive backs in the offseason. Illinois' only invite, Pat Bryant. Ryan, we didn't get a Zachary Franklin invite.
That's crazy.
I was thinking we were going to get both wide receivers there. And then Purdue getting some love with Marcus Mbao, the offensive lineman, the only Purdue Boilermaker to be invited. Really, that's the only thing I kind of want to touch on tonight. I'll give a quick rundown if there's some big-time performances from these guys after the Combine. But, guys, enjoy it. It's a good way to enjoy some football as we get it ready to lead into March Madness. I wanted to also say Ryan and I are going to do a, for fun, March Madness bracket challenge. Probably through the ESPN. That's, I believe, the one. ESPN or CBS got the highest amount of votes when I put the poll up. So we'll have a for fun, free March Madness bracket challenge. We encourage y'all to join us. That would be a lot of fun to see just how it all shakes out. Maybe someday if we ever get a sponsor and have more money, we can give you a prize. Next week, we're looking at a quick little Combine recap, maybe some risers and fallers relative to their NFL success. maybe another quick update on spring game dates and times, if that's even going to be a relative thing by then. And I kind of want to talk with Ryan about some first time new coordinators that we have our eyes on. There's been a lot of change in the Big Ten. And then maybe talking a little bit about Big Ten quarterbacks. Very popular position group, obviously, because they control the entire offense. So, kind of break down our groupings of the Big Ten quarterbacks and what we think of those guys coming in next week. Mr. Ryan,
Mr.
anything from
Clinton,
you? Are you alive?
barely. No, sounds good to me.
That's all I have. Guys, I think probably until we get to the spring previews, we're looking 30, 40-minute episodes. Be effective. We'll save our hour plus long stuff when we get into the big content things.
When we have people who know what they're talking about joining us.
Certainly.
All right, everyone, thank you for tuning in once again. And whoever jumped in live today, thank you for seeing our faces. It's nice to see you all again. We'll be back with you guys same time next week. Until then, for Clinton, I am Ryan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have a great week. Enjoy the spring weather. Ish.
Deuces.
Spring-ish.
Yeah. I got a Riverside sent me a different thing tonight. They sent me like a hand waving to me and